Duke's a very important album. I think if Duke hadn't happened, we wouldn't have carried on, I think, in my mind, because I think we sort of refound ourselves a little bit. I suppose by then we'd done some solo albums, if I remember rightly. So you were less pushy about stuff you'd written. Phil was living alone in his house, actually, in Guildford, and we wrote it there. That was quite nice too, you know what I mean? Sort of in one of the bedrooms, actually. Nice environment. Phil was writing a lot more now, and we started writing songs together again. Turn It On Again came out of that. Duke, the intro of Duke.
By this point, chronologically, I'd left the band, gone to Vancouver after In Another Three to save my marriage. They went off and did their solo records while I sorted myself out. I came back. They were in the middle of their solo album, so they kind of had to finish them. I didn't have anything to do, so I did what was to become Face Value. That was my first solo record. And then when all that was finished, we got together and we moved all the gear into my house. I moved everything out of the master bedroom, you know, and I already had the second bedroom as my little studio. So we moved everything out of the master bedroom and we wrote and set up and wrote all these songs together.
I think we came in there with the intention of trying to sort of, a little bit barren of ideas, so we sat down and did a lot more improvising. And some of the ideas I had that I hadn't really developed, I had this riff, which is the opening part of Behind the Lines, which was doing, which was just almost just a rotating sort of riff, four different in four keys. And I hadn't really developed it, so we sat down and started playing it, and then immediately sort of started developing, little ideas came and things, and then in fact the whole song which came from it was actually just a development of that first part, but it wasn't something written beforehand at all. So that it very much emerged in the studio from that one idea, and that's how a lot of the things happened on this a bit. Something like Duchess would really developed, I think, more than anything out of the drum machine.
We'd been to Japan in '78. End of '77 for the first time for a couple of weeks, and because they were treated us like royalty, and Roland, which is a Japanese company, or was then anyway, but I don't know that now, but they gave us one of the each one of these drum machines that were fresh off the production line, programmable slightly, and not quite cha-cha-cha waltz, but a little bit of that, but still original. And I said, I don't thank you. No, thank you. Thank you very much, thank you. Anyway, then of course I went back and I had this marriage stuff going on. Then I ended up with my studio and I said, could I have my drum machine, please? I think I might be needing this. So I started to write what was to become Face Value. Of course, In the Air Tonight uses that drum machine is all over the place on that record. And of course it was actually in the next room where we wrote Duchess, So it was a thing where people could play and this could keep time to it while I could sing, and all the fading in and fading out of things. It was good fun, but the drums played a big part of it because you thought you had the sound, and then suddenly the drums come in and suddenly it goes cinemascope.
That first time we ever used one was really exciting, because the whole thing was it would kind of carry on without you having to do anything. That was what was nice about it, so you could try something and then if it didn't work, whereas a drummer always wants to do something fiddly. A drum machine just keeps on relentlessly doing the same thing. So I'd used it as an aid to when I was writing on my first solo album, A Curious Feeling. I'd used the drum machine very much as a sort of basis to sort of write against, but I didn't end up using any of it specifically on the album, which I slightly regret now. Whereas on this, we did on that one track, and it gave it a very distinctive feel. And then Duchess, and Duchess is probably one of my favourite tracks we've ever done. Very simple, a lyric that sort of is very easy to relate to in the sense of the rise and fall of a female rock star, really, which we call Duchess. We could have called it Madonna if we'd sort of thought about it, but because Madonna hadn't been created by that point, but it would have been more interesting, wouldn't it?
But now every time that she
For me, this is the first album where he really sounds like a singer. I have to be honest about that. I mean, there's some lovely singing on the previous albums, but it's not as convincing as it is on this album, I think. I just think some of the singing on it is really good, not just on the songs he wrote, but things like, Duchess, I think the singing on that is really tremendous. I just think it's sort of, he also knew what to do a bit. When I wrote because I wrote the lyric and the melody to Duchess on what we'd done as an improvisation, and I did a version of it and I sang it, made a tape of it and played it and things, and it's all the elements are there, but when he sang it, it's not just that he's got a better voice than me, it was the fact that all the little kind of embellishments and tales and things that happened on it just transformed it completely from being something like a sort of session guy might do to something that a singer does, and his own character is sort of right across it for that reason, and the resultant effect is very, very strong.
I think by this point I had done all my demos for Face Value, and Face Value was it wasn't finished, it wasn't even probably recorded in its finished stage, but I'd been through the process of a writer. I mean, I'd written all the Face Value stuff by the time we wrote Duke, so I'd changed. I'd become a songwriter. I mean, I'd become more of a singer because I was singing songs, that I'd written, and emoting, if you like, and being, kind of putting things out there. So yes, it probably is true that Duke was the first album where I kind of felt more comfortable as a singer.
Phil's writing stuff on his own helped change the balance too, I think, actually, because he's always had a very good feel for writing songs that work, in sort of 4 minutes, which was never our forte, and that I think helped balance the album too.
As a writer, he was contributing more to the band now than he had done in the past. I'd still say that this album is still more dominated by what Mike and I wrote, but Phil was coming up much more to be a kind of equal kind of writer, which I think was as a strength, I think, because we had the variety which each of us gave. He had a directness. If Phil's I'm the least direct, and Mike's and Phil's the most direct, and then Mike's somewhere in the middle, and the combination could work quite well. We'd pull each other in different directions. I'd make him expand a bit, and then he'd make me contract, which was not a bad thing to do. Otherwise, every song would be 25 minutes long.
By this point, we'd really, I think, had decided that what we did best, or what we preferred doing, now we were our solo outlets, was actually doing things we couldn't do anywhere else, which was write together. So we kind of did bring a couple of songs each to the project, which was less than ever before, and that was to become even less on the next record. But Tony brought a couple of songs in, Mike brought a couple of songs in, I brought a couple of songs in. Tony insists that I never played him in the air tonight. I did. He claims that I didn't. But I did, because I was very proud of it. But he says that if he'd have heard it, he would have wanted to do it in Genesis. But anyway, I think along the way here, we were starting to get a bit harder and edgier about certainly harder and edgier than There Were Three.
I held the book so tightly in my hands. I saw your picture, heard you call my name.
Nearly everything on Duke really actually has a live. It actually sounds almost the way we wrote it, because we recorded it live for us. I mean, we went, once we'd written the songs, we went to Polar Studios, where I hadn't worked there yet. No, I worked there a few times afterwards. But they'd just opened this wonderful studio of ABBA's, and we went there, had a big live room, because I'd worked in a live room in London, and I wanted to get that sound, but we didn't want to go there, so we found out they had a lovely, great big drum room. I think Zeppelin had recorded there actually, and that's where we heard some stuff. And it was a fantastic studio, and we did Duchess. I mean, Duchess is one of my favourite songs. I heard it the other night, and really, that was one of those things where you really did capture something that we kind of couldn't really do properly in rehearsal, because it's got drums, drum machine, I'm singing, and it's all, it's all got to be there, and couldn't do that justice in rehearsal, but in the studio it just came alive, and that was done very, very quickly. Duke's Travels, Duke's End, all that stuff, I mean, it's very, very strong. Behind the Lines, a lot of energy, and the live drum sound, the live feeling of everything in the band. I mean, that was, to me, the first time we'd started to sound good on record.
Ah, you let me down.
we have a habit of doing what we do, but I do think that there's a bit of concept to try and get back to writing together. I think the solo stuff made it possible. You know, when you're doing albums and you had three guys bringing in lots of songs, it was hard to actually find enough room. But with the solo albums being done, you had less stuff to bring in. You didn't say, here are my 10 songs, you know, or anything many good sort of thing. You actually arrived with a few bits and less material, which is probably a good reason.
The Misunderstanding was a song that I'd written kind of based on a kind of a rhythm. It was a little bit between Hold the Line and Toto and Sail on Sailor by the Beach Boys. You know, I love that kind of, when that Rocky Mountain Way by Joe Walsh, that kind of rock thing, when it's just in the right place, you know. And so that's how I'd written it. I don't say it ended up being as good as that, but that was and I was going to have it on face value, and then I played the stuff to the guys, and Tony and Mike really liked that because of the same reasons. They like the Beach Boys kind of that rock thing. That was a rock thing. It's like ding, 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 ding. So they took that song and we recorded it, and I guess because it had single written all over it in America, it was the first single.
There must be some misunderstanding. There must be some kind of mistake.
It was our first American hit. You know, a song that Phil was gaining confidence in writing, I think, and it sat very comfortably within the album, I think. But I think the main thing is started to write together again, what I think was really important for us. And I think after that we kind of carried on more in that vein.
At one point, I think we thought that we could revisit the idea of doing a long side, maybe split, you know, like having bands, because we're still talking about vinyl at this point. Like Supper's Ready, you know, something that was like a body of work. And I think we kind of, I mean, that's why there's Duke's Travels, Duke's End, because that's kind of, we still like those titles, and we kind of, that's all that's left of that idea, really.
Yes, that it would have gone Behind the Lines, Duchess, Guide Vocal, Turn It On Again, Duke's Travels, Duke's End, which is actually how we performed it when we were live. We tried it. The reason we didn't do it, one reason we didn't do it is we didn't want the comparisons with Supper's Ready, and felt maybe it wasn't the moment to do a sort of a totally combined thing like that. As it is, there is quite a lot of linkage between those tracks anyhow. The first three are linked. And at the time when we were talking about this, the bit that became Turn It On Again was just a link. It was just, we went once around the whole sequence, you know, just the two bits, and then went on into Duke's Travels, you know, well. And we did it and we recorded all this stuff, and I thought that's much too strong to just do once, so we did it twice.
All I need is a TV show, that and the radio.
Turn It On Again was a song that had this guitar riff that I was playing much slower, actually. You know, and Phil said, just try it, pick it up a lot and try it like this. I was going do 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 at one point with a sort of Queen harmony guitars. I don't know why I got to that point. I was just messing around with it.
My bit was slow too, in fact. We were playing the whole it was more like that. And then Phil sort of I don't know, he was kind of in a certain kind of mood in those days, and the drums are what make it. I mean, absolutely, the drums are what make it, which is a sort of key thing. That's why it's so much a group song, even though musically it came from the two of us. But it's and it just gave it an energy and something that we hadn't seen in it at all originally.
And it shows how someone can come and just take an idea, how a band works. If he hadn't done that, it wouldn't have had that driving feel to it. He said to me, "Do you realise it's not in 4/4?" Which I thought it was in 4/4.
It's got a good drum part that makes it sound simple rather than making it sound as complicated as it is. So that's one of the reasons why it could be a single. I think if you told the record company it was in 13/8, they'd have said, I couldn't be a single.
We will fly away. I can show you some of the people in my life.
The catchy part, as you came at the end, turn it on, turn it on, turn it on. It then became a stage classic, and then, much to the annoyance, I think, of most Genesis fans, we did a Blues Brothers parody at the end of it, which they'll be pleased to know that we've ditched for this last tour. In fact, we've brushed it up and dusted it down, and it's back to its original state.
It was a hit single, and of course it's a slightly... I often wonder whether Turn On Again would have been even played on the radio if we hadn't had Follow You Follow Me, because it's a more complex piece of music, and it's deceptively simple because it has an extra beat every sort of third bar or whatever it is, and I think it goes through a lot of chords and things. And as you say, the chorus, there is no sort of particular chorus line until the end of the song, so you kind of you wonder whether it would have been. In fact, when we played this to the record company, this album to the record company, they said, "Oh, there's a great hit on there." We said, "Yeah, we know. It's Turn On Again." They said, "Oh, no, it's Alone Tonight." We said, "Alone Tonight," Oh, God, no. And we said, "No, it's got to be Turn On Again." So we went with that. Well, I think for one reason or another, we weren't very happy with the And Then There Were Three cover. We just felt it was sort of like, didn't really do much. It was a bit nebulous and everything, and we were a bit stuck for ideas, and I don't think Hypnosis came up with their best idea for that, really. I mean, it sort of has a character to it because you kind of relate it to the album now, really. But thinking that the album was probably kind of a bit more straightforward and quite fresh. It's got a very gloomy, dark cover. I think you could have had something a little bit more kind of up. But that's our fault as much as anything else. I think with Duke, we just thought, well, we want something different, so we went to look in a different area for a designer, and he actually came down with various suggestions of possibilities. And one thing he came down with was this ABC done by this French guy, which had this character on it. And we looked through this, and we thought we really liked this style. It's great. And we looked through the book, and we got to Q, and had this, what is actually the album cover, which had a Q, a question mark above it, because it was just a simple alphabet book. We took the question mark out and used it, really.
If you can find something you like and see it, commissioning an album cover is always hard, because if they produce it, having shot it and spent money and gone somewhere with a photograph, they come back and you see you don't like it, you always feel a bit obliged to sort of try and work with it. Whereas this, you could see it and you knew his style and what he did. I think it's a great cover, actually.
It was just nice. I mean, we calling the album Duke, and there was this guy, this fat guy. It just, he wasn't Duke, but he could be. It was just, it was a nice, strong piece of artwork. Yeah.
We've always been very keen, I think, Genesis, on quite simple images, graphic ones, rather than a mishmash of lots of ideas. I think Duke kind of embodies that. It's a really simple, strong, quirky style image.
This album, I have to be honest, this is my favourite Genesis album, really. It has such a sort of positive quality about it. I love the way it starts. When I say I love Duchess, it works fantastically, and I love all the instrumental stuff towards the end too. I think, although it starts a little weak, but it just gets really good. And there's a strong emotional moment when it gets to the repeat of guide vocal done within Duke's Travels, which is a very intense piece of sort of singing and everything. And I think that's to me is one of the strongest. This is one of those very strong moments in Genesis music.